I was having this conversation with a friend yesterday, and I want to get y'all opinions on it. What's better, being an hourly employee or salary? You know, salary, at least you know what you're getting up front, budget accordingly. But with hourly, A, you might not get them hours, but you can work overtime. You can get some more money. Which one are y'all picking? I think me personally, I'm salary right now, but hourly doesn't sound bad. I mean, if the number's high enough and I can work overtime, like I think I would want to be hourly, bro.
Hello everyone, this is Emmanuel Cook. We will be reacting to a new video today, so make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe down below, and let's get into the video.
The biggest difference between working an hourly job and a salary job is the brain space that is occupied when you are off the clock. Or at least that's my personal experience. When you're working an hourly job, so for example, my husband is a blue collar union worker. He's paid hourly. He does do things like overtime and on-call or beeper work, but in general, he works a shift. He's in, he's out. And when he's out, he's out. No one's calling, no one's texting, there's no emails, there's no pings, there's nothing. He's done, he's out, right? However, for me, I'm a salaried employee, morning, noon, night, all around the clock because we're on all different time zones. I am getting emails, I'm getting pings, I'm getting phone calls, whatever it might be, right? And no, maybe I'm not expected to answer them at that given moment, but they're coming. They're just like constantly coming at you. And for a lot of us, with anxiety or stress around these things, right? Like the idea of having to wake up to just hundreds of emails, it's a lot. And then things like vacation, right? Like when we go on vacation, my husband is on vacation. He's blissfully on vacation. I am still often asked to join calls. I'm still often asked to respond to emails, albeit slowly, right? Like there's different expectations. And then if you do fully sign off for those that go on a 2-week or a 1-week vacation, you're going to come back to an inbox that is just absolutely destroyed, but also expected to work as if that didn't happen, right? Like there needs to be a rework of this system because I can tell you, I've worked in childcare centers, which is arguably one of the hardest things to do because you're just with tons of kids all day and it's a lot. And you're not paid very well and you work long hours. Like I was working 9 to 6, sometimes with no lunch break, right? Like it was just, long relatively, but long when you're working with kids. And at least when I got to step foot out of that door, I was done. My brain could go somewhere else. It could be somewhere else. I did not have to think about work until I stepped foot in the next day. Whereas with my job, it's always like you're 1 foot in. And I feel like a lot of people in a salaried position feel that way, that like you're tethered a little bit. Like you're always just kind of being pulled back and you can set hard boundaries, but it can be really hard to have those respected. And it can be really hard sometimes to progress in your career if you set those because sometimes people just view that as being inflexible. And so I think we really need to rework the way it all functions because it's just monopolizing our brain space.
It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm trying to figure out how are you a grown person and you don't know if you get paid hourly or salary? Like, how did you get this far in life? Why don't you know your finances? There is a difference between getting paid hourly and getting paid salary. For example, if you are someone that is a teacher, you get paid a salary. A salary is you ain't getting no overtime, boo. You can put in all the hard work, long hours, overtime that you want to. You're going to walk away with the same amount of money, whether you show up or you show out. Either or, same amount of money. Hourly. Sometimes, if you don't come to work, you don't get paid. Sometimes when you're hourly, you don't get paid time off. Hourly is, I get paid $19.11 per hour. I get paid $62.31 per hour. Do you work 40 hours a week? We're going to look at your pay stub and we're going to determine, do you work 40 hours a week based on where we are in the year? And we're going to do some multiplication, a little bit of division. But for me, as a loan officer, to ask you the question openly and blatantly and you don't know, you're not ready to buy a house. Point blank, period.
The difference between an hourly wage job and a salary job is that the salary job, you're on call 24/7 until you get the work done. The hourly job, you can turn it off and go home. So that's one of the biggest differences. Now, if you're really good at your salary job, it might not take you the full 40, 50, 60 hours that you would need to do at an hourly job just to get there. So it's kind of also the wage brackets. So the more money that you make, the more likely you're going to be turned to salary, which is kind of interesting. But if you can get your job done quickly while you're on salary, that's a pretty good gig while you're trying to do something on the side.
So just an example about salaried versus non-salary with overtime. So hourly pay, and then you get the overtime. Public school teachers are salaried. Our salaries are public knowledge is based on years of experience and our degrees. So with a master's degree in 18 years, I ended up retiring at $55,000, whatever. But anything I did outside of contract hours, so if I was making calls, if I was tutoring, if I was grading, going to an IEP meeting, anything like that is not paid for in overtime hours. And so the reason teachers are worn out is because we work way beyond our contract hours. We work our butts off. But why would employers want to go to salary versus overtime? Because they can set those salaries, and they will inevitably end up benefiting from a salaried employee versus an overtime employee.
Hey y'all, it's Dr. Precious here, and it's been a minute since I've sat down to chit chat with you all. And I've been seeing this question on social media. It's not a new question, it's regurgitated stuff. But I still want to get you all's opinion because I'm going to give you my opinion. So the question is, should a nurse take hourly versus salary wages, and is one better than the other? Now I know this may be surprising because most people want to say hourly. But I actually, in my opinion, my 14-year experience, salary has been better for me. Let me explain. If I'm working salary, for example, in education, I worked in programs where we group taught. So it's 2 to 3 instructors in one course. We broke the material down and we taught based on our expertise. So that left me with teaching 2 to 3 times, maybe 4 a semester. My check is still saying I was teaching or working 80 hours every 2 weeks. No, I probably did 10. Now, if you're working at the bedside doing direct patient care, and I haven't done that since 2020, I need hourly wages because when that code happens at 7 o'clock, I want to be paid for that extra hour and a half that I'm on the clock. So I would say direct patient care, get hourly wages. There are 2 things that I think you should think about before you accept hourly versus salary. 1, what are your job duties? What are you going to be doing? Who are you responsible for? Okay. And secondly, what is the company's policies, their culture, the environment? What is it like? Do they require mandatory overtime? Are you compensated for that mandatory overtime? If you're salary, can you get overtime and be paid for it? In my 14 years, out of all my positions, I've only had one salary job that allowed me to work overtime and get paid. It was in case management for an insurance company. They needed extra work on Saturdays. They let us get an hourly wage for the time we put in on Saturdays, in addition to our Monday through Friday salary, which was lovely. For my people that are looking at management jobs, particularly in skilled nursing facilities, they're likely going to be offering a salary wage. Now, think about it. If you are in a skilled nursing facility and you have no nurses or you're short 2 nurses, it's common. Guess what, manager? You're on the floor, okay? And you have to ask your company, if I'm doing admin work and direct patient care, and am I being compensated fairly for that? So that is something to think about. Also, home health workers. I worked in home health and I never took the salary home health jobs. That salary may say $120 a year, but that company may have a policy you have to see 8 to 9 patients a day. After 5, I'm ready to go home. So in home health, I prefer a pay per visit, which is basically like an hourly rate for different types of visits. Our assessments usually were more, then you had a certain pay for a reassessment, and then you had to pay for a traditional visit. And that lets me know how to break my week down. If I had 4 assessments, I know that's double pay per hour. That's all I'm doing that day. So home health, I prefer hourly, not salary. One big con for me is when I worked salary and case management in the ICU, because it was super busy, and it was plenty of nights I stayed to 6 o'clock and my get off time was 5. But my company was pretty cool. They allowed me to either come in later that next day or take that extra hour back and leave early the next day. So if your company allows us, then salary is perfect. But that's the biggest con, is that you may be working super hard and staying over, coming in early, and you're not being compensated for it. It just so happened to work out for me in my positions that I was able to be compensated. So let me know down below, salary or hourly, what's the best one for you?
As a salary employee, I see stuff different, right? I used to go to work early, be on time. Well, I'm still gonna be on time, but go to work early, like set stuff up, stay a little bit later to make sure stuff is good for tomorrow. Baby, once I realized they ain't paying me until it hit 9 o'clock on the dot. I'm sorry. Because I want to work 9 to 5 so bad. Like, it's stuck. But until it hit 8 o'clock on the dot, they will not start paying me until it hit 8 o'clock on the dot. And as soon as it hit 4:59 and a half, they stopped paying me for that day. So guess what? When you stop paying me, I stop working. I really don't care if you didn't get to finish your sentence, and I dang sure don't care to finish mine, because I'm not getting paid to do so. Ain't nothing in life free, baby. Remember that.
A quick reminder, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe down below, and let's continue the video.
This might be the stupidest question in the world, but I want to ask it, and I want to explain myself. Why do more people not want to work an hourly job versus a salary job? Technically, I'm only being paid for 40 hours a week on a salary right now, but I'm realistically working like 45 because I don't take a whole hour lunch break, and sometimes I work through lunch. And some hourly jobs can be full-time and you still have paid time off and benefits and all that, but then you're actually getting paid for every hour that you're working. So my question is, why do people prefer salary? Why did my cat just attack me?
Any job can be non-exempt and earn an hourly wage and be eligible for overtime. But not any job can be exempt and earn a salary and then be ineligible for overtime. And employers, unfortunately, misclassify people. It's one of the #1 things that gives me a stomachache as an HR consultant. Misclassification. Ugh. In order for a company to classify someone as exempt and give them a salary and make them ineligible for overtime, 3 requirements have to be met. The salary has to be fixed and not subject to reduction just because less quality work or less quantity work has been done. There are limited reasons in which you can reduce a salaried person or an exempt person's paycheck. And there are salary minimums. You cannot be on a salary earning $35,000 a year. So take a look at these. And then a major component are also the duties tests. Not every job, duties-wise, responsibility-wise, will meet the criteria in order to be exempt and earn a salary. If you're a manager classified as exempt and earning a salary, your primary duty must actually be managing. And this has come up a lot in retail and in fast food, where the manager, getting a salary and not getting overtime, has been spending the majority of their time being on the cash register or preparing the food, which means their primary duty is not managing. An exempt manager also has to supervise at least 2 people. So if you're a manager earning a salary supervising 1 person, you may be misclassified. And a salaried exempt manager also has to be able to weigh in on hiring and firing decisions. If you're an exempt employee earning a salary as an administrative professional, you must meet all of this criteria for you to be classified as exempt and not earning overtime. Skilled professionals can also qualify to be exempt and earn a salary and then be ineligible for overtime, but they must meet all of this criteria. And there are some other categories of exemption, like an outside sales exemption, and there's a computer employee exemption, so think like software development, computer programmer, and some others. Now, what I have my clients do is when they're going to have an exempt position, I make sure that their job descriptions reflect the criteria in those duties tests from the Department of Labor. So if they are ever questioned on if they classified a position correctly, their job description clearly supports that they met the criteria of the duties test. And again, for a job to be correctly classified as exempt and earn a salary and not be eligible for overtime, the job must meet all of the criteria for one of the duties tests. If one criteria is not met within the test, the job cannot be exempt. every job can be non-exempt and earn an hourly wage and then be eligible for overtime. But not every job can be exempt, earn a salary, and be ineligible for overtime. So be careful.
Okay, this just has to be stupid. Like, it just has to be, but I'm gonna say I boogie as fuck. I just got a job offer for a salaried job. Salaried? I'm 21. What do you mean? No. Okay, because, like, I've been working since I was at least, like, 16, 17. I'm 21 now. And I've only ever had, like, hourly pay. Like, X amount of dollars per hour. Maybe, if I'm lucky, they give me time and a half on a holiday. More than often not, I am not getting PTO or salaried. She said, do you have any questions? I said, how much, like, compensation wise, like, what's the vibe? That's not what I said. I'm not an idiot. But, inquiring about the hourly rate. And she said, oh, well, the position you are being interviewed for is salaried. So it's about X amount of dollars a year. I was, I'm 21. I have never, what the fuck is why am I adulting? What? With healthcare? Healthcare, PTO, and sick leave? What? Like, I don't know why I'm floored. This is like, I've been doing my taxes for so long. Like, this isn't my first foray into adulthood, but Jesus, it felt like a large jump. Oh my God.
I have not worked a salaried job before. I have only worked hourly. And I think it just depends on the actual job, right? For example, as a doctor, I would want hourly work. But as a lawyer, I would want a salary job. So it just depends on the job type that you have, really. If the job requires a lot of hours, you want a hourly job, pretty much. But if not, stick with a nice salary.
All my salespeople out there, I'm in tech sales. My company I've been with for 2.5 years just randomly decided to make all of the sales reps in our sector hourly employees versus salary. Our base pay like equates to the same hourly rate as it would if we were salary. But I just think it's so interesting. I think it's so we can get overtime, but I don't think Google or Salesforce or, these big tech companies are paying their sales reps hourly. I have to do a timesheet. I haven't filled out a timesheet since I was 16 years old and worked at PacSun. So let me know if that's ever happened to you.
So here's my opinion about being an hourly paid worker. Like, when there's low census, they send you home and you don't get paid. Like, I used to work at a surgery center, and when there was low census or we were done, I would hey, I'm gonna go home first. I was a full-time employee, but I made less than working part-time. Like, if they're flexing, I'm like, me. Pick me. But when you're salaried, you get your shit done and you still get paid.
What is the difference between a salary employee and an hourly employee? And what happens when you have someone that takes a 30-minute lunch break, but the company deducts 1 hour? The main difference between an hourly employee and a salaried employee is that a salaried employee gets paid when they show up for work that week. If they don't show up for work that week, they don't get paid. But as long as they showed up and worked a couple of days, they get paid the full salary for that week. Under the Fair Labor Standards Act, even if you're salaried, you still get paid overtime if you are a non-exempt employee. In order to be exempt from overtime, you have to be paid a salary of at least $684 a week, which is the equivalent of $27.63 an hour. You cannot reduce an exempt salaried employee's pay because of the quality or quantity of that person's work, and that person must perform duties that fall within certain exemption categories. If you have a situation where non-exempt employees are taking 30-minute lunch breaks, but the employer is deducting 1 hour for lunch, it's wage theft. So under the Fair Labor Standards Act, an employer cannot get free wages. So you can't get 30 minutes of free labor by deducting 1 hour for lunch when your staff only takes 30 minutes for lunch. Okay, back to work.
I'm so embarrassed. And I already feel stupid in this situation. So to learn this information in this way makes me feel even more stupid. I went and found my ADP information. Luckily, I had the app on my phone and hooked it up to my phone number and such. ADP was showing that I was receiving the same gross pay that I had thought out, you know? The one that I said should be adding up to $27.50. It said, hey, you got that money. I'm doing 2 weeks worth of pay divided by 80 hours of work and calculating that out to be $27.50. When the offer they made was for $4,400 a month. According to ADP, in order to calculate your hourly wage, you would take the $4,400 a month, times it by 12 to get, 12 months. You divide that by the product of 52 times 40. That number is like 2080. So your hourly would actually be your annual divided by 2080. Not your monthly divided by 2 divided by 80. Those will produce completely different numbers. I never signed for what I thought I signed for. Based off ADP's calculation, I signed for $25 and some change. Had I done that math right, I never would have signed. I would still be jobless. Y'all might be really critically offensive, white people, but at least you're not wage thieves. That makes me feel better. Worse. Honestly, it makes me feel worse.
So, no disrespect, I'm just posting this so you know how much we make, because I don't think it's a lot for what we do. If people think we're paid fairly, that's your opinion, that's fine. These are the average salaries for nurses in the US. You can pause to read it, or you can Google it. Some states are making as low as $25 an hour, and granted the cost of living is probably less there, but still, I don't think it's enough. I think the job I have now, I'm paid fairly and I'm happy. But I think it's unfair for other nurses that CEOs are making millions of dollars a year and the nurses are the ones doing the hard labor. And I also don't like how other jobs, when they ask for better pay, better benefits, everybody's like, yay, good for you for standing up for yourselves. But when nurses want to do it, it's like nobody wants it to happen. Like I said in a previous video though, I will always be able to afford my bills as a nurse. It's a good career, but I'm not rich either.
I appreciate you guys watching the video today. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.